Welcome to the Ultimate Health Summit. I'm Karen King, and with my co-host Selma from Radis, we're happy to have Katina Makris with us. We think that Katina really has brought Lyme disease information into the mainstream consciousness, brought it to the smaller communities, the greater cities and towns of the United States and Canada, really more so almost than anyone else we can think of. Katina has worked in natural health care for 30 years as a homeopath, spiritual healer, and Lyme expert, a popular newspaper health columnist, award-winning author of Out of the Woods, Healing Lyme Disease, Body, Mind, and Spirit, former board member of the Council for Homeopathic Certification. Katina was the keynote speaker for the acclaimed Ticked Off Music Lyme Fest Awareness and many other conferences fundraising series, as well as acclaimed Lyme disease educator. With a speaker vitae of over 172 appearances, her charismatic and authentic blend of professionalism have brought her to rallies, the White House, countless support groups in every corner of the USA, Canada, and France. She was the host of the hit radio talk show, Limelight Radio with Katina. Katina is a graduate of Duke University and the Still Point School of Integrative Life Healing. Residing in New Hampshire, Katina teaches internationally, including at the Omega Institute. Welcome to the show, Katina.
Hey, welcome, ladies. It's my pleasure to be with you all.
Oh, it's ours. We've been trying to get you to come on for a long, long time, but here we are.
Yippee! We did.
Yes, that's right.
Excited.
So, let's jump.
Everybody just froze.
You were stricken with a very mysterious flu. Only after 5 years of torment, 2 completely bedridden, and devastating blows to your professional and family life, your illness was finally diagnosed as Lyme disease. But diagnosis was only the beginning of your journey towards healing. Take us back to an overview of your journey and where you are today.
Oh my gosh, Selma and Karen. My journey, sad to say, is millions of people's journey. But I'll try to bring it in a nutshell for you. As you said, it was the summer of 2000, so that dates us now. Back 17 years. Yes, I was the picture of health. I had been living an organic lifestyle for over 20 years. As we said, I'm a homeopath. I'd been eating organic food, yoga, meditation, had the big organic garden, and I chose to live in New Hampshire. I'd left my New York City upbringing and chose to live in the country to raise my children in a wholesome environment. And we were canoers and hikers and skiers and, you know, all of those great, wonderful things. And that summer I got sick. And it was very strange because I had great passive immunity. You can imagine being a healthcare practitioner, you're around bronchitis and strep and all these things day in and day out. And so most healthcare practitioners have very strong passive immunity. So I got hit with this wicked summertime flu with vertigo and a terrible, terrible headache and neck pain. I was extremely exhausted, and I remember saying to my husband, oh my gosh, I've got to sweat this thing out, and I loaded up on a bunch of homeopathic anti-flu remedies and zinc and echinacea. I thought, okay, you know, I'll pull out of this thing in a day or so. I usually always do. Well, to cut to the chase, it was 3 days later, and I was like a wet rag. I could barely get out of bed, and I had all these strange symptoms, like kind of like a numbing palsy on the side of my face, and my heart was doing irregular skips, and everything was off. And I tried to get into the office to see clients, and very difficult. I lasted 2 clients. And my business partner was a medical doctor. And I stumbled into his office and I'm like, Tom, something's really wrong. This feels like malaria when I was a kid in Africa. And he's like, well, let's run an exam. So he gave me an exam and drew some blood and sent me home to bed because my blood pressure was like 80 over 50. It was terribly low. Really low. He says, get in bed. I don't want you doing anything until we find out. So I got back into the office to see him a few days later, and he said, you have a slightly elevated white blood cell count, which does signify a bacterial infection. So my hunch is, because you've always been the picture of health and you've really never had anything, it's probably sinusitis with all this vertigo and headache and head pressure. And I'm like, what? Sinusitis? Like, this is what this feels like? I treat this in the office. Oh my gosh, this is horrible. Is what I'm thinking. Oh my God, sinusitis. And I remember Gerald Ford had sinusitis, and he like, he fell and he tipped and he had vertigo. And I'm thinking, oh boy, I can relate, So he left, my doctor and business partner left on a 2-week vacation, wouldn't you know? And he said, take these supplements. He gave me some good herbals and some colloidal silver. And he says, if you don't feel better in a week, I'm going to leave you a week of an antibiotic at the pharmacy. I'm sure you're going to pull out of it. You always have. I said, okay. We were just, unsuspect. Well, he was gone, and honest to God, I was not getting better. And now weird things are happening, like all these digestive symptoms, and my hip is killing me. And now I'm getting anxiety attacks in the middle of the night, like while I'm sleeping. And my husband was an international businessman, traveled extensively, and I have a little 3-year-old, and my 3-year-old can't understand why mommy can't come out to play. And anyway, I take the backup antibiotics. It doesn't do a thing. I end up in another doctor's office, and they think it's walking pneumonia because I'm so weak. And I'm thinking, what? I take such great care of myself. How could I have walking pneumonia? And anyway, we limp through the summer. They say bed rest for 6 weeks. It should pass. Walking pneumonia should pass. And oh my gosh. So my acupuncturist was coming to the house. I'm loaded up on homeopathics. We're trying to pinch hit with, babysitters and things with the 3-year-old. And emotionally, I'm having a really hard time because I have a very busy private practice of my own. So who's going to take care of my patients? So now I'm, getting homeopaths from Vermont and different parts in different neighboring states to pinch hit for me. Anyway, to cut to the finale, as you mentioned in the beautiful introduction, thank you, it was 5 years.
Whoa.
Of unbelievable dark time in my life, bedridden for 3, and in and out of hospitals, doctors' offices, 3 Lyme tests, right? 3, and they were all negative. This test they use called the ELISA, ELISA, is a very outdated test. It's 40 years old. It's an antibody test, and the organism, I've learned so much,
of course.
17 years later. It's an outdated test. We need a different kind of test, an antigen or a DNA strand. But anyway, 3 negatives for me on the Lyme disease test. And I was given all kinds of diagnoses. Fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue syndrome was very obvious. Migraine complex, because I'd have like migraines 5 days a week. Anxiety disorder, irritable bowel syndrome. I had pericarditis of the heart and these terrible clutching heart pains. Mm-hmm. And as Salma had said, I lost it all. I lost all of those emblems of success that we strive for, that, so many of us reared after World War II. Mm-hmm. I was taught to climb the ladder of success, right? Mm-hmm. Build a career, have a nice IRA savings, have your home and your family, and I lost it all. Everything went. The career, my sitting on the national board, I had to, step down from the board. I had to give up the health column. I had to close my practice. My marriage crumbled. I lost my home. I lost the savings. And there I was with a broken spirit as well as a broken body. And good fortune finally came with a colleague of mine, a PhD clinical nutritionist, and I ended up in his office by happenstance, and he said, Tina, this is neurological Lyme disease. And I was like, what? No, I don't have Lyme disease. I've had 3 tests.
Tested, yeah.
And he says, no, well, let me see the blood work. And sure enough, it was that ELISA test that I mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, no, we need to use a state-of-the-art lab. We need these. This is an old test. So we used a great lab out of California that everybody should learn about. It's called IGENX.
Okay.
IGENEX. And if you're suspicious you have Lyme disease or you have any autoimmune conditions, because we've watched the autoimmune conditions rise like firecrackers over the past 40 years, which is the same timing that the Lyme disease epidemic has surged.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis or fibromyalgia or Crohn's disease or interstitial cystitis, any of these, it's very worth being checked for a tick-borne organism. So the good news out of the bad is that we finally figured it out. And I thought, hey, it's a bacterial infection. We should, nuke it with antibiotics and I should be fine.
Mm-hmm.
But I learned through my clinical nutritionist friend and now all those wonderful guests I had on Limelight Radio.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that was such an opportunity to bring the dialogue first, to the world, that we could talk about Lyme disease. And I got all these great experts on and researchers and doctors. It was fabulous. The archives are great.
Mm-hmm.
But I learned that, when you have a chronic case of Lyme disease like I did, that's years old, that antibiotic therapy is not the complete answer.
Mm-hmm.
Because what has happened is you've had this chronic inflammation on the inside of your body.
Mm-hmm.
This bacteria sets up an inflammation cascade. So all this inflammation causes damage. So I ended up with damage to my muscles, the fascia of the muscles, which was the fibromyalgia. I had damage to my digestive tract. I had damage to the trigeminal nerve in my, the side of my head where all those migraines are. So just as important as killing off the bacteria, which is one of my big messages in teaching people and educating people, is that you have to rebuild the damages. And that's where the good work of a nutritionist, herbalist, naturopath, homeopath, acupuncturist, all the natural medicines come into play with this illness. And I use this expression a lot. I actually like it. I think I came up with a really good one here. That Lyme disease is the infectious epidemic illness of our era that asks us to unite the two hands of healthcare. It asks us to take the diagnostic tools and the pharmaceutical weaponry of traditional Western medicine and marry it with the restorative therapeutics of natural medicine.
Right.
Because 2 hands working together are better than one.
For sure. For sure.
So
would you say, Katina, that you're fully recovered now?
I am. I'm fully recovered. 2010. I was literally out of the woods, which is the name of my first book, the one that won 2 awards, and it's available on Audible and in various forms. But 2010, I was back to myself. I got back to work. I could live a normal life. I could travel and dance, and it was a long rehabilitation. It was 5 years of treatments for me.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
And mending my spirit was just as important as mending my body. So I want to give that message to people too. Don't give up too early.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So Katina, the question I wanted to ask is, somebody has been recently, diagnosed with Lyme disease. Is the course of action now the antibiotics? I mean, for you, it was like 5, 6, 7 years you were going, and, maybe too late with all that damage. But somebody right now, maybe, a week later, and they get tested and it's positive. So is that line of action now antibiotics?
Exactly right. And don't think twice about it. It's a very serious bacteria. It's in the same family as syphilis, but 4 times stronger. So if you get any of these, strong flu-like symptoms like I did, and if you're lucky enough to get that bullseye rash that people talk about, it's like a circle with a dot in the center. Some people think it's a spider bite. But if you get that bullseye rash and you have any flu-like symptoms, that's 100% confirmation that it is a Lyme disease infection. And all the ticks, the little baby deer ticks, the big fat wood ticks, the dog ticks, they all carry it now. It's not just, we thought it was just the deer tick for years. So you're right. If you catch it early, and in the early months, the International Lyme and Associated Disease Society, we call them ILADS for short, ilads.org. That's a website you can go to and find a practitioner that's what we call Lyme literate, meaning they've got training in Lyme disease. But 6 to 8 weeks right now, they're saying for early infections, not just 2 weeks. Because believe it or not, they've learned, and we still need more research on.
Of course.
We need a lot more research, but what they have discovered is that it's a slow replicating bacteria. Mm-hmm. So to make a whole new generation is 6 weeks versus like Streptococcus or Staphylococcus, like in 48 hours, you'd have a new generation. Mm-hmm. So that's why some people only get 2 weeks of antibiotics, and then 3 months later, they still have symptoms, and they've got headaches, and they're exhausted, or knees killing them, and that's what it is. You need aggressive antibiotic treatment up front. I wouldn't think twice about it.
Okay.
I would just do it. It's like it's syphilis or tuberculosis. You have to jump on it.
For sure. And then you would get over it much quicker than once you.
Yes, because if you catch it early, and what we consider early, really in the early weeks, maybe up to 2 to 3 months, if you catch it in that small window, it's kind of like having pneumonia or bronchitis. You catch the organism while it's still in the bloodstream, where the antibiotics are still very effective because they work well for organisms in the bloodstream. But this bacteria, this Borrelia burgdorferi, which is the culprit for Lyme disease, it's what they call a spirochete, which is kind of a spiral-shaped organism. So it spirals its way out of your bloodstream, and then it goes into the tissues, and it'll go into the joints and into the muscles. And so that's why you're getting all this inflammation, like people get the rheumatoid arthritis type things, or like in my case, I felt it in my neck right away. I probably had a bite on my neck. I have long hair, right? I probably didn't see the neck. But this Borrelia bacteria spirals its way from the bloodstream, and it gets into tissues and organs and glands, and then it gets into the spinal fluid, and then it hits the brain, and that's why I had like the meningitis headaches, and that's why people show up with MS type conditions and Parkinson's, because this is a little bit more on the science side, but it's worth understanding. One of the bacteria itself, when it's in your body, we're kind of like a little habitat in there. Mm-hmm. I think of us like an ecosystem, with like your skin being the outer layer, like a terrarium. And so inside is like this habitat that this organism's living and replicating, and you're the host. It loves to eat fatty acids. Okay, that's its food. Mm-hmm. So when you think about fatty acids, they're everywhere. That's like what gives things its stretch. Like fatty acids are like on the fascia of the muscles. Mm-hmm. Fatty acids are like in the connective tissues and the synovial linings of the joints. Fatty acids are on the myelin and sheath of the nerves. Fatty acids are on the pericardium of the heart, the sac of the heart. So like, oh my gosh, when you think about it, if the organism is colonizing, right, it just genetic Russian roulette, and also, as I said, location of the bite. Various organs and joints get affected. So it actually starts to make sense when you delve into this illness. And originally they thought back in the late 70s, early 80s, that it was a short-term infectious illness, and that 2 weeks of antibiotics would take care of it. And they thought it was limited. You remember, to that kind of northeast quadrant there, Connecticut, Long Island, Cape Cod. But we've learned the hard way that the migratory birds are like taxis. They carry ticks on board, right? And they're flying up and down the flyways, and they're up into Canada, Nova Scotia, Norway, and then they go winter over in Georgia and Florida. So like North Florida is terribly infected. Texas, one of the largest Lyme disease support groups in the United States, is in San Diego.
Ooh.
Unbelievable.
Are
Everywhere.
these birds that are carrying them, are they not affected?
The birds can be affected, but mammals get the worst problems. Rabbits, deer, dogs, they all can get affected. We all can get, horses really suffer from Lyme. And what we should say too, is Lyme disease that we're speaking about, this bacteria, is really only one of the organisms that ticks can carry. Because when you think about it, ticks are like little cesspools, and who they've feasted on before they got to you, right? Whether parasites or larvae or viruses or whatever on the deer or the raccoon or whatever before they got to you. So you can get infected with other things. Like I had what they call co-infections. And one of them is an organism called Bartonella, which commonly is called cat scratch fever. Okay. Another one I had was an organism called Babesia, which is like malaria. Remember I said to that first day when I went into my associate's office, that I said, it feels like malaria? I had these sweats and this pressure headache. And so we call them tick-borne diseases, Rocky Mountain spotted fever. So there's a lot to the story. And Europe is suffering, Canada's suffering, Asia has it, Australia has a big problem.
Well, 89 countries, isn't it? I think I read somewhere 89 countries. So why do you think this is happening? Is it climate control? Is it the climate?
Yeah, I think it's kind of a perfect storm situation. I think you're right. I think the climate is definitely a factor because ticks are in habitats they didn't used to be before. Like I remember being a child at summer camp up in Vermont, which is very close to the Canadian border.
Yeah.
And we didn't have ticks when I was a child up there. And here in New Hampshire and next door to me is Maine. The wildlife and game department, they do studies and, counts, and they say the tick population has surged in the past 10, 15 years. So you're right. The climate change, I think, has allowed habitats for the ticks to live in. Also, we as human beings, unfortunately, have developed, like I'm back to that ecosystem model again. Our body pH has become more acidic.
Okay.
Right, because of the unhealthy foods.
Unhealthy foods, a lot of sugars, a lot of carbohydrates, a lot of processed foods. All of this makes us more acidic, and we should be up at like 6.8 or 7.0 pH. And when your pH gets below 6.5, it's like the perfect habitat for all these organisms to multiply. And when we get below 6.0 is when cancers grow. So if we've got an acidic terrain between your diet and stress is very acid producing. And now we've got infected ticks, right? And they've migrated into areas they weren't there before, and they don't have as many predators as they used to. We kind of have a perfect storm, sad to say. And they missed it on the diagnostics, I have to say.
Yeah, and that's our physicians having the problem there too, right? Like even I know our Canadian government was adding another additional, I just read that today, another $4 million on, you know, just preparing doctors with information that's not like 40 years old, right?
Exactly. Right. They're really needing to come up to date with it. And we're waiting, hopefully I've talked to one new lab. I can't really spill the beans yet, but
No.
it looks like, fingers crossed, that there is a new diagnostic test right on the horizon.
Oh, okay.
And if so, it will be more like a screening. Do you remember those tuberculosis screenings?
Yes, yeah.
It'll be more like that. It'll be more like everybody can get an annual or biannual screening. And it's more like going on an antigen versus an antibody. So you're going to pick this organism up much quicker. Mm-hmm. And it'll be, it's very much needed. I'm hopeful about this. I met with one of the people from this lab. They've been creating this test for 25 years.
Wow.
So if that test comes to the marketplace and becomes available, and I think it will, that's going to be a big step forward for all of us, because then we can all get screened.
Mm-hmm. And so what about protection? Like you're
of course, we were just speaking about the pH and making sure that your body isn't too acidic. Is there anything else?
Is there a spray? Because everyone's saying about go in the forest and, spray yourself down. But DEET is a really heavy chemical. Yeah. Is there anything?
Yes, there's much better products than the DEET. Yeah, so there's a lot you can do with prevention. So this is a scary topic, right? And it's intense when you hear my story, mm-hmm. and you hear all that I lost, and that, we didn't even mention that they gave me a 10% chance of recovery. And here I am 100% recovered. So, I'm truly really a beacon of hope for everybody that you can recover. It takes diligence. You got to be committed to lifestyle changes, to dietary changes, to integrating, as I said, the different tools of healthcare. You need a lot of support, from friends and family, because I couldn't drive for over 3 years, and you need help with everything from laundry to groceries to you name it. So, but prevention-wise, there's a lot you can do. Like this afternoon, it's been raining here in New Hampshire for 5 days. I've been chomping at the bit to get out there and plant my vegetable garden, right? But I was also a little tick season. It's May, end of May, early June. All the ticks are out, and it's damp. They love damp weather. So what I did is I have a set of my outdoor clothing for gardening or hiking that I spray up with something that's called permethrin.
Okay, and what is that?
A derivative of chrysanthemum, actually.
Oh, okay.
Chrysanthemum derivative. There's several products you can find on the internet by the name of Repel, R-E-P-E-L.
Okay.
And they've got this permethrin in it. You don't put it on your skin, but you spray up your clothes, your shoes, your socks, your hat, whatever. And you can also buy clothing called Insect Shield. LL Bean carries it, and REI Sportswear, and it's already been saturated with the permethrin, and it's good for 70 washings.
Wow.
Yeah. Ooh. So anyway, I, spray, I have my outdoor leggings and my, my long sleeve t-shirt. It's how I put my hair up in a ponytail, in a hat, so that there's no chance that, and then I did my whole gardening. And then when I come in the house, and you just got to get used to this, is right there in the laundry room or your mud room or whatever it is, or the garage, is strip everything down.
And you start checking.
Right into the dryer on hot.
Oh,
okay. Ticks will dry out and shrivel up from high heat. So you turn the dryer up to hot for 30 minutes so your clothes get just, killing the ticks that way, because they don't live in the desert.
Right, okay.
Okay, and then I went into the shower, did a good scrubbing with the loofah, right? And must have brushed my hair about 15 times.
Yeah, of course you would, yeah.
And you can also get your dogs and cats, they can wear Vectra or Frontline or one of these repellents so that they don't bring the ticks in the house, because that's another issue.
Mm-hmm.
The pets can bring the ticks in. And then there's other things you can do prevention-wise, like I've had to give up the bird feeders. Because you remember we talked about the birds.
Yeah. Bring it out. Oh, okay.
They could be at your feeder and they could just drop a tick off, right?
Oh.
You could be out on your patio, or one of the kids could be, so no more bird feeders. And you can get your yards treated. They will spray it with the permethrin or with cedar oil.
Okay.
You can get them treated, cedar oil, and also I should say for children and for those of you if it's really hot weather and you're in summertime shorts, you can use essential oils. There's blends of them that have rose geranium, lemon balm, eucalyptus. Those are all natural tick repellents. So they're making them now too. I see them in the health food stores. I've seen these essential oil products that you can put on your skin. And I feel like all the children going to summer camp or all the kids, out on the soccer fields and whatnot, is you should every day or put in their backpack, they should have one of these essential oil, natural tick repellent. So, you can also keep your grass trimmed short. And we advise, if children have swing sets or sandboxes, don't put them near the wooded areas. Make sure they're in the center of your yard, or maybe have gravel around them, like little pebblestone gravel. So it's not as tick friendly. And then I just brush my dog every day outside and give him a check too.
Okay. So for heaven's sakes now, Katina, if we find one of these little varmints on her, so what's the best way to remove them?
Okay, yes. So we want to, believe it or not, just take tweezers and you get as close to the tick as you can to your skin, right? Because they have a body and then they have a little head, and it's the little proboscis nose on the head that actually numbs your skin. You don't even really feel them when they bite you and adhere. So you want to get the tweezers right in there as close as the head, and then just pull up slowly. Don't yank them.
Okay.
And don't twist them, and don't put Vaseline on them. Or when I was a kid, we used to blow out a match and hold the match.
Yeah.
All of this stuff, believe it or not, I've learned from all of these epidemiologists and researchers. Believe it or not, the ticks get freaked out over this kind of stuff, and they react and they vomit. And when they vomit, they're injecting into you, straight into your bloodstream, whatever's in their guts. So if it's the Lyme infection or the Bartonella or whatnot, so you want to just get a hold of that head and pull it out slowly.
And that doesn't freak them out? If somebody took my head in a tweezer,
I would be freaked out.
But what if we break it? What if we break it off or something? But then what?
Well, then you should go to the doctor and have them get it out. But you can, there's a good, I should have had a show and tell. Oh my gosh. There's a great product called tick tweezers.
Oh.
Tick tweezers, and I'll get the link on my website for you all at my KatinaMakris.com website, so that people can get the tick tweezers, and they're really $9 or $10. And I've got one in the car, one in the house, one in my backpack. I've got them everywhere, and they've two heads on it, the little flat one that I described about, and there's this little scoop one for if the tick's already engorged.
Yeah.
And you feel like you can't get to the head, it's got this little scoop on the other side that you can gently pull it out that way. So then you can also, this is another step, you can get the tick tested. So what we often say nowadays is, get your ticks tested. And depending on what region of the country you are or the world, you can get them tested. Like there's a place in Maine called Mainly Ticks. You can get them, okay. And then remember I said IGenics Labs, the one that for the accurate testing, you can get your ticks tested there. There's another great website called LymeDisease.org that I should mention. They are a wonderful group. They link all the support groups around the country. And really, so depending on where you are, go to LymeDisease.org and find a support group. And your support group leader is certainly going to know where you could get your ticks tested. Like I know in Rhode Island, the University of Rhode Island will test ticks. It's like Sally sells seashells, right? And we've got to laugh. I mean, you got to laugh because it's such a horrible illness. It really is atrocious that when we have moments to laugh, it's well worth it.
Yeah. But, you know, Katina, what is happening here? You know, and I was looking at some of the celebrities, like we've got Avril Lavigne, we've got Alex Baldwin, you know, the Trump impressionist. They all, you know, have had Lyme disease. And the biggest thing they always talked about is, you know, the belief. They had all these symptoms going to the doctors. I mean, these are high-priced, you know, professional people. They could have, you know, the best doctors and everything else there too. And they were having trouble like years and years and years and not being the diagnosis taken as seriously.
It's terrible. It's absolutely, it's so upsetting. It's so upsetting. So many lives. I mean, right now they estimate in the United States, this is a lowball estimate. They estimate the Center for Disease Control, which is very conservative, estimates that 300,000 new cases are contracted annually and only 10% are diagnosed. And we think that's a lowball number. We think it's up closer to 1 million.
Wow.
Germany, listen to this. Germany, with their meticulous record keeping, 800,000 new cases a year.
Oh my gosh.
That gives us some perspective. So if Germany's experiencing that, of course, parts of the United States and Canada's like terrain is very similar to New England and the Great Lakes. And so Canada's waking up right now. I've been working with some of the support groups there and some of the physicians. I'll be coming up actually to Canada in the fall to speak. But Canada's waking up to the realization that, holy cow, we have some of the highest MS rates in the world.
Yeah.
And we have a huge tick population, and Canada has not been aware of the fact that their doctors haven't even been allowed to test properly. Okay. So I think you ladies know, you've probably been watching it in the news. There's some things going on with Parliament now, and they're trying to bring more money and research in and awareness for children. And I think Canada's going to wake up to the story in a kind of more take charge way than the United States has, because for 40 years here, it's, as you just said, all these celebrities, and George Bush Jr. had Lyme disease as well.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of people have had it. Now, this is another interesting piece. Okay, so I got severely sick, right? I was in that advanced neurological Lyme disease state that we talked about early on. I should say there is some good news, because they're doing genetic studies now. There's some of these cutting edge doctors with that organization, iLads, are doing genetic studies. And like, I actually participated in the genetic study, and I have a double gene flaw, okay, a double mutation that's susceptible to blood-borne organisms.
Oh.
Okay. So I had malaria as a teenager. I've had dengue fever. I got Lyme disease. I'd probably be susceptible to Zika because I have a double mutation flaw. Some people don't have that gene flaw at all. So they could get infected by Lyme disease and recover very well. Right?
But not you, because of that flaw, right?
Double flaw. Right? I have the double flaw. And if you have so there's only, I should say everybody needs to be aware because we can all get infected and we can all get sick. And some people might have milder cases than others. And maybe some of these celebrities, I haven't met them personally to hear their case histories, but maybe they were still functional. You know what I mean? But they just didn't feel well. Maybe they had chronic headaches or GI issues or sleep problems, or there's a lot of mood disorders too because it messes around with the neurotransmitters. So if they didn't have that double mutation like I did, you can have a Lyme disease infection and you just kind of bump around in and out of doctor's offices, and I've got headaches and I'm exhausted and my shoulder's killing me, and no one's got a clear answer. So the genetic testing, I think, I'm very curious to see how that evolves, because we've also found out that some of the people like myself that get so severely sick is that we also have some other genetic issues. Like I also had a genetic, they call them SNPs actually. I'm calling them flaws. And SNP sounds a little less dire, but for mitochondria to dysregulate. Do you remember mitochondria from biology class?
I was fooling around in biology class. I don't remember much of it.
The Krebs cycle. The Krebs cycle, the glucose, which is blood sugar, gets run through the mitochondria of the cells, and the Krebs cycle produces ATP, which is fuel. So people like myself that had a propensity for mitochondria dysregulation are the ones that get the terrible chronic fatigue. They get bedridden like I did. And then they're finding some other pieces. This is very interesting, that a lot of the cases that get very, very sick, that are even worse than mine, that have seizures and have all kinds of complications, and they've gone even to Lyme specialists. They've even been to 5 and 6 Lyme specialists, and they've gone through antibiotic therapy, and they've gone through different herbal protocols, and they're not getting better. I've just taught with 2 great doctors, one a neurologist and one an autoimmune specialist, just recently 2 different workshops, mold toxins. So some people who have been exposed, I was exposed to black mold. I didn't know it. You don't smell black mold.
No.
We only found out about it when I was so severely sick, and there was this little leak like in the shower that I was, you're at home forever on the sofa, right? You can start noticing all these things in your house. And I'm thinking, what's with that shower over there? Those tiles look like they're kind of buckling a little bit to me. And I'm watching this over like 6 months. And finally I had someone come check it out, and they took the tiles, the whole wall was loaded with black mold. So we've learned that people that get exposed to toxic mold never leaves your body on its own. So you've got this toxic situation inside, and then you get the tick-borne organism. So it's like you get a double whammy. A double whammy. So it's been, and this is another piece. One of the doctors I just talked with, Dr. Jodi Dashore. She's brilliant, neurologist. She was awarded Physician of the Year by the International Neurological Natural Medicine Society. She, for her work with autism and children with peripheral autonomic nervous system, they call it PANS syndrome. A lot of these children have been exposed to toxic mold. And then if they get a tick infection too, if they get Lyme disease on top of it, the autism starts to spiral. So there's a lot of interesting information that we're finally kind of piecing together like in a big jigsaw puzzle. And I want to be optimistic in a very dark time where we've been experiencing really the epidemic of the 21st century. I look back in time, you can see about every 35, 40 years there's an infectious disease that sweeps the population. And millions are maimed or killed. And then medical science rallies and they figure it out. So if you look back to the 80s, it was AIDS, right?
Yes.
Before that, it was polio. Before that, it was diphtheria. Before that, it was tuberculosis, yellow fever, malaria. Like you can keep looking back, in time, and you see these epidemics, smallpox, and so right now we're really in the crosshairs, in my opinion, of this epidemic that's been kind of silent, but it's coming to a head now, as you said, with the celebrities stepping forward.
Yes.
And just the vast clinical information that's finally being collated. So my hope is, like we've talked about, that we're going to get a better diagnostic test, that we're going to have our doctors educated to look at for this condition, and also for them to understand what the chronic picture looks like, because that's where so many cases are falling through the cracks. It's like you said, it's the 2-year-old, the 8-year-old, the 15-year-old case that's being, you're just propped up on different kind of pharmaceuticals to manage the joint pain or manage the insomnia or manage the fibromyalgia or manage this or manage that. So if we can piece it all together, I feel there is hope. I really do feel there's hope.
Well, you're the classic example. Look what you've gone through, and look at you, attractive,
vibrant, healthy,
zest, and zest for living. So, but you worked at it. You had other people. You work with other homeopaths and everything else there too. It's just you weren't accepting. There's got to be a different way, and and look at what it's not giving up.
No, it's not giving up, and I also have to say the human being is enormously resilient. We really, really are. We've got to give ourselves credit for that. I mean, there's so many of you out there, I think, in the audience that are survivors of some story in your life already, whether it's, a tragedy of, loss of a dear loved one, or a marriage falling apart, or a divorce, or some devastating, financial blow. I mean, there's a lot of us that are survivors, and we are very resilient. And the human being is incredible, and we just adapt in so many ways that we don't even think about it. Inside, outside, altitude, all these different, constant changes. And so when I think of this illness as horrific as my journey was, and how much I lost, right? And how deeply sad I was. I mean, oh my gosh. I mean, the despair that I was in, and the depression. You can imagine the crying, right? And the loneliness. And I mean, it was very, very, very tragic for me. But I have to say the resiliency factor is very real. And, I finally found a beautiful spiritual healer who really helped me mend my spirit, because after so much loss, it's like, how do you believe in your tomorrow? Like, what could I ever really get well again? Like, could I go back to work, and would I dance, and would I travel? And, all of those things I didn't even believe. I mean, it was just hard enough to imagine some days, making it to the grocery store. So learning, the powers that we bear on the inside are powers of belief and faith and self-love. And that was a huge one for me. Was loving myself, taking care of myself, nurturing me.
There's an animal on me. Sorry.
Better check for something there. Katina, go look. Something bitter. Go look. Okay, come on now, Karen.
It's going to freak me out. Sorry.
Katina. Come on, shake it. Let's see what falls out. We've got a professional here. Check it out.
Oh my God.
The power of suggestion, right? I don't know.
Okay. She's looking around. Yeah, okay.
Probably a spider. She probably had a spider.
Yeah,
anyway, we're remarkably resilient. The human being is remarkably resilient. And I have to say, and I this has become a big part of my work. And I have to say, gifts are born. Gifts are born to us even in the darkest of times, right? And so many of us, as I said, we're survivors of many different obstacles and odysseys. And, when you make it through those hard knocks, you always learn something.
Yes.
And you develop a new skill set or a new way of looking at the world or a deeper point of reflection or stronger sense of will, right? Or a
Or
tap
a
into your
newfound passion that you never had before.
exactly. And for me, you know, what I've learned and really bring to the table now with my clients one-on-one or in my workshop settings is helping people really tap into what I call that mind, body, spirit pathway. It's so powerful. I mean, the mind is incredible and our hearts are so passionate, like you said, and our spirit, it really does want to thrive even in the face of adversity. So when we learn how to nourish ourselves and take care of ourselves, I mean, that was a really big learning for me. Here I was, the healthcare practitioner, right? The homeopath, the holistic junkie for like 20 some odd years that was always caring for everybody else and had, you know, solutions and resource for them. I had to learn what it meant to care for me. And I didn't realize how much I needed to nurture my creativity and to give myself amplitude, to have quiet time and reflection. And I love beauty. So just having a little bouquet of flowers or pretty seashells or out or pretty colors, like, you know, I realized, wow, you know, this is important for me. So for all of us, no matter what the journey is, whether it's a Lyme disease journey or recover from cancer or bankruptcy or, you know, loss of a child, I gifts are born. And I want to honor that, the heart and spirit in every one of us, because it really is magnificent.
It is. And you are magnificent. So just as we end this conversation, Katina, you know, the name of our summit is Ultimate Health, Live Life Well. Give us some final comments of what that means to you.
Ultimate Summit, Live Life Well, right? Oh my gosh. Well, I think I'm a poster child for you all because, yeah, bingo. I love that. I love that essence that you're bringing forth to the world. Thank you, both of you, for creating this summit and for helping us bring that energy forward. Yeah, you know what? I've always been very athletic and I'm physical. So I love any of the swimming, yoga, dancing, and one of my new passions now is tango.
You're Karen's alley.
I've taken up tango.
Wonderful.
I've just followed a lot of my passions. I became an oil painter. As you learned, I wrote 2 books. I just have to say that tapping into my creativity and expressing my creativity and expressing those passions is very much of living my life well. So, and I so much, you know, am attuned to the natural world and the elements. And even though the woods is not as safe to me as it used to be, oh boy, being on a beach or being out on a kayak at sunset really does feed my heart. So yeah, I really live every day
Good for you.
with that kind of spirit that, you know, whoever I meet, whether it's a new person that I meet at the market or next to me in the airplane or whatnot, I pay attention. You know, I want to see who they are, hear their story, see what we have in common. That human touch, that gesture of recognition and appreciation for one another. That's how I live my life now. And honest to God, the connections you make, the people you meet, the unbelievable synergy is just so beautiful to me. It really is very beautiful.
And that makes a life full as well. Not only live life well, but you're living it full, like full out, right? So
yes, very much so. Like tonight, there was a beautiful sunset after we had a big thunderstorm, and oh my gosh, I just stood out there and looked at all those gorgeous colors and the rhododendrons in bloom, and it's just that appreciation. No matter how busy the day is or how many things are multitasking, is just taking that moment or those 15 minutes for appreciation and gratitude.
exactly.
gratitude goes a long way.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, we are in gratitude for you to be.
It's been a wealth of knowledge. My goodness.
Yes, yeah, very nice. Thank you very, very much. We enjoyed this immensely.
Thank you. Thank you. It's been a joy to be able to share with you all and with our audience. It's a very important topic, the Lyme disease situation, and I hope I gave you all good information. And
absolutely. I think everybody will be very appreciative of how much you shared here and the hope that they can look forward to, right? And for all of you that would like to go deeper with Katina's work, perhaps you've been affected by Lyme or somebody in your family. She's put together a really wonderful special offer, and you can find more details on this page. I want to thank you, Katina. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you both. Thank you, Karen. Thank you, Salma. It was wonderful to spend this time with you, and thank you for inviting me and including me. It's been my ultimate privilege.
And we want to thank everybody for watching. And until next time, live life well.
Yes, thank you all. Namaste.
Everybody. Bye.